podcast.
Sure.
Greetings and salutations. Thank you for joining us. My name is Johnny Nato, and you have entered Embrace Your Storm. We've got another exciting episode for you as always. And excuse the noise in the background. They're replacing a door, which is fantastic. So before we get to the interview, everyone don't forget, check out the website, embraceyourstorm.com. There's the other podcast on there called Soundbite. It's a daily dose of metal music where I give a live reaction song to a new metal song every day. So that's fun. Check that out. Don't forget, you can email me at hello@embraceyourstorm.com, and there's dashes in the domain because I'm cheap. And that's it. Okay, so we have on an exciting guest today. We've had on a lot of people from Berklee, and I hope this doesn't stop. But so today we have on Ralph, and he is a professor at the Berklee School of Music. And Ralph is quite the creative person himself. So Ralph, thanks for coming on today.
Sure, Johnny, nice to be here. And about maybe 15 years ago, I was running a television show, and it's like an interview show. And we had a show at Berklee, and
Nice.
I get on stage and I said, thank you so much to the Berklee School of Music for hosting us, this and that. And then the professor in the room says, excuse me, we're Berklee College of Music. and for 100 years, they were Berklee School of Music, and everybody says that. And then when we became a college, like when people make that mistake, we have to say, no, we're a college.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
Yeah.
The Berklee College of Music.
There you go. So I'm in my 10th year here at Berklee, and I teach, or going towards my 11th year. I teach in the music business department.
That's cool. That's fun and exciting.
I love the school. I absolutely love the school, and I love my students. And it's like, if you want to know about people that are encouraged to create things, like I have classrooms full of these people.
Yeah, that's exciting.
It's not easy getting a loan or asking grandparents or friends and this and that for X amount of money per year. It's very expensive.
Yeah.
And it's very competitive. But
there's people from all around the world are trying to get into that school every year.
Yeah. Something like almost half of our students come from all over the world.
That's cool.
And that's part of the reason why I do this. I have students from Ukraine. I have students from Russia. I have students from Iran. I have students from Iraq. I have students from all over the world.
That's cool.
And what brings us together is music.
Yeah, the universal language, right?
Right. And as you know, more than anybody, music for some of us, it's one of the most important forces on the planet,
Well, honestly, I think it's one of the most important, one of the most, maybe not necessarily important, but it's definitely a force whether or not you want to recognize it. Like music is going to affect you. It's kind of like, you might not believe in gravity, but step off the edge of a building and you're going to find out, whether you believe it or not, it's going to affect you. Right. And so
right on.
Music is that same way.
Right on.
So someone could walk into a room, regardless if they want to react to it, it could just hit them and touch them in a spot they just didn't expect, that's why I think other creation type things that people are into, I think it affects other people that way too. Like maybe if they see, some piece of clothing, or like they're into like sewing, or you know what I mean, or art or whatever. It can move those people just in that very same way, But music is just, like music is a time traveling machine. Like I wanted to talk about this one time. Like music is so powerful where, you could, like, if you're a kid and like you used to listen to a song or whatever, or maybe like there's a certain smell. It's like every time you hear that song, it's like, boom, you get transported right back into your bedroom. You can still see your post. Like that's the power of music, man. Like we already do have like a time traveling machine, like that's what I love about music. It can do so much stuff.
I'm a pretty massive David Bowie fan. And one of my students was working for Tony Visconti. And Tony was one of Bowie's producers and whatnot. And he's working with Tony in New York City, and they had the job of getting the original tracks from David Bowie that were in a vault, and digitizing them all. So there's
Wow.
DATs and there's tapes and there's all these different technologies. So they digitized them, and my student had to kind of clean them up and make sure they were all digitized. And then they had to make sure they sounded good and master and mix them and to put in the movie. So I saw this movie, and it was like a Tuesday night, and I was in Arlington, Massachusetts, right outside of Boston.
I used to put on a film festival in Arlington, Massachusetts.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah,
Great.
yeah.
Well, there's a film festival that still goes on. I don't know if it's yours,
That's
but
actually probably
it's
the one I used to do. It's called
wow.
Lonely Seal Film Festival, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I left, I watched the movie with my wife, and it was like Bowie and the music and the scenes, and it was just really, really great art. And I walked out of there, and it was, 9 o'clock at night, and I was walking a mile home, and I go like, I looked at my wife and I said, now what do we do with our lives?
I hear
David
you.
Bowie was so inspiring.
Mm-hmm.
And, the way he designed his outfits, the lighting schemes, what he did with sound, what he did with guitar tones, everything was ripped apart and brought together in such a creative way. And
Absolutely.
um, and these people inspire me, and
Yeah.
they inspire you, and they inspire my tribe of people in the music business and my students. Like we're the same tribe. Like this
I
this
hear
is
you.
good stuff. This is important stuff.
No, I hear you. And that's kind of staying along this same line. That's one of the kind of things that I push if I'm talking to someone about if they're playing, guitar or some kind of instrument. I'm always like, don't be afraid of being you because you're the only
Mm,
you we're gonna have that interprets the notes the way you do. So we
right.
don't need you interpreting the notes like Eddie Van Halen. We already got that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we already got Jimi Hendrix interpreting the notes the way that he did. So we need you to do it the way because what's important is that person being true to themselves, like David Bowie, say for instance, and like because he was true to himself, he connected with all those other people. And so,
Yeah.
if you're
Yeah.
not going to be true to yourself, then you have the big chance of not connecting with those other people and not like sharing your music and trying to encourage or help along people with the music that you create. You know,
Right on, right on. And it's not just sharing music, you're sharing your heart and your
Ex-
soul and your dreams and your grandparents' dreams and all this stuff that's together in us, right?
yeah, totally, totally.
You
So
know, uh, Johnny, I start out every class at Berklee with kind of like the same talk. And so the students introduce themselves, and then I go to the front of the room and I say, guess what? Today, and I have 2 hour classes. Today, while we're sitting here at Berklee College of Music, there's going to be more than 100,000 songs being released to the digital streaming services. Wow, just this day, 100,000 songs.
wow, that is insane to
Right.
even
And,
imagine.
right. And then I pause, and then I go to my desk and I move my cell phone from one side to the other, and I move my chair, and then I look up, and and then I say, let me tell you something. We don't need any more songs. And it's completely quiet. And I said, we don't need any more guitarists, managers like myself. We're,
Hmm.
we're full. The business is full. We don't need any more of anything.
Mm.
And then I adjust a pen, I move my chair back, and I look up. And I'm thinking, if I was 20 some years old and on the line for a couple $100,000 for an education, I wouldn't want to hear that my first class.
Yeah, I hear you.
And then I look up and I said, so keeping this in mind, that every day there's 100,000 songs that are coming to the marketplace. Why should someone care about you?
Mm.
Why should someone care about you as a manager, a guitarist, a songwriter, a singer, and an artist? Why should someone care?
Mm. Mm.
And then I pause again, and I say, we have to figure that out. We have to figure that out.
That's cool.
And
That's
that's
actually a
what
cool
we're
way to open up
I
your class.
I and I, that's good for me too. We don't need another manager. We don't need another teacher. But why should someone care about me?
Mm.
So I have to, this is what I had to figure out my whole life long. I've been managing artists for about 35 years.
No kidding.
And before that, I was a musician. And before that, as I was a musician, I was also promoting shows. I was
That's cool.
promoting, some of the, I hear, you're a rock guy, right?
Yeah, yeah. I'm into heavy
So,
metal and everything. Yeah.
right. So, I was in the late 70s, I was in Allentown, Pennsylvania, which is a kind of a
I
gritty
actually,
blue
I actually
collar
have
town.
some, I actually have some friends from there.
Come on.
Yeah, yeah,
Good
yeah.
for you. So I loved my hometown, and I loved it growing up there. Um, so we were doing this was something called the Allentown Council of Youth, and it was the student government for the 3 high schools we had in Allentown. And we would get together for workshops and for free concerts in the park and all kinds of things.
That's
And the
cool.
way we made our money was we were co-promoting big concerts. So there used to be 2 places in Allentown for big concerts, and there was a Deep Purple concert,
Oh,
and
nice.
there was a little bit of a riot. So the police department and the mayor says no more rock concerts.
No kidding. Wow.
and
Okay.
and then and then they had to kind of pause everything and reconfigure everything. And what they said is, if there's going to be rock concerts, they're going to be done differently by
Mm.
real promoters, and every concert's going to be co-promoted by the Allentown Council of Youth. So a legitimate, professional promoter from one of these big cities would come in and say, we have Styx and Rush and Mott the Hoople. Are you
Yeah.
interested? And then they would contract with things. They would put the tickets on sales, and we would do with street team. We would put up posters. We would
Huh.
promote. We did hospitality. We did
So,
light
so
security.
would the town get a cut of the action for doing all
Yes,
this? Ah, okay.
the
Okay.
council of youth would.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
if there
yeah.
was a profit, half the profits would go to the Allentown Council of Youth, and from that we could put on all these free things for Allentown. So
Wow, that's
my
actually that's a cool design.
right,
Like setting it
right,
up that,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, that's really
So
cool.
so I was the vice president at junior year and president of this organization my senior year. So we did like Rush and
That's
Kiss
cool. That's cool.
and Styx and Hall and Oates and Dolly Parton and
Wow, wow. You had all big names traveling through there then.
yeah, Richie
Yeah,
Blackmore's Rainbow and all this stuff. And
that's
it was just
cool.
like, and it just changed my life. It was absolutely amazing that these big shiny buses would come in from heaven, come to our little town. And this is the late 70s, so the internet wasn't around. So, we everybody in town would come to these concerts because they were the big rock concerts.
Right. It was like,
And
and it was like, people would actually socialize and do things back then.
right, in person.
Right.
So that changed my life. And I think quite often of later on in my life what I was doing. I had a commercial real estate company,
Mm.
and I would be listening to radio stations during the day, and they would have interviews with artists and things. And they said, "Oh yeah, we're going to be in Philadelphia today and Delaware, and then we go down to Nashville, and then we're going to do a run to Atlanta and Birmingham, and then down to Florida." And I think, wow, imagine that. And I was thinking, how do you get out of your hometown? How do you make a
Mm.
difference in this life?
Mm.
And then I thought, how amazing it must be just to go from city to city to city, playing music and creating all this energy around your art and your
Mm.
music. What a great life that was. You don't have to be behind, a cubicle. And you're always in motion and you're seeing people. And for me, that was always in the back of my head as something that was bigger than my hometown, that
Mm.
was bigger than what I wanted to do with my life.
Mm.
So when I was around Kiss and when I was around Rush and all these other bands, I would they were my heroes.
Did you get to like
And
hang out with
I
them or
got
be
I
around them or whatever?
yeah, Johnny, I got to hang out, and at the time we didn't
That's
have
cool.
selfies, so I
Right,
took my
right.
camera and I took pictures. I had pictures of people and I had autographs. And then when they would leave, I would go to the green room and I got the 15 towels that Kiss used to take their
Oh,
makeup
wipe off
off.
all the, oh man,
And,
imagine if
and
you
I
had
got them.
those towels.
I had the 15 towels. I brought them into school the next day in a big plastic bag, and I sold them for $10 a towel.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know how much you could sell them for now?
Well, you know something? It's funny because years later, I was at a, it was a charity function in Los Angeles with all these people. And afterwards, I went out and I was waiting for my car to come around. And I was standing there next to a big guy, and I looked over and it's Gene Simmons.
Oh, jeez.
And I said, Gene, my name is Ralph JACCODINE, and I promoted you guys in 1977 in Allentown, Pennsylvania. And he said it was like September 17th, 1977, or whatever the date was.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
said, how do you know that? And he goes, I don't do drugs, I don't drink, and I have a brilliant mind.
Wow. Yeah. Well, there you go.
So there you go. So that's how that happens.
You
So
know, one thing about him, like Gene Simmons, I want to just throw in like this thought that I had of him because you know people will say like, oh, he's kind of this arrogant, whatever, and you know this,
mm,
that, and the other thing, and I'm like, okay, let's just for a minute think about where this guy said he came from. Like, if you hear his
yeah,
story, how he's like grew up in Israel, you know, and
yeah,
you know, then like they're rationing, you know, food and stuff like that. Of course, it's like wicked loud. Hopefully that stops him. Okay, but like rationing like food and stuff in Israel, and when he comes to America, he's like, I couldn't believe, you know, a grocery store, like all this food everywhere, right? So like
yeah,
this guy comes from that, and now look at what he has. No kidding, he's got this like arrogance. Like
right,
this guy conquered the world. You know what I mean?
right,
Like, so
right.
yeah, he's gonna be kind of arrogant and be like, yeah, nothing gets in my way. Look at what I've done, you know?
And you know,
So
it's so to get back to the tells and Gene Simmons. So I said to Gene, hey Gene, by the way, I gotta thank you because after your show in Allentown, I got the 15 towels that you guys took your makeup on, brought it to school, and I made $150 before homeroom. And he said, he looked at me, looked down at me, and he said, you fool, if you would have kept them, they would have been worth 10 times that.
exactly, yep, exactly.
Always thinking. But
Yeah,
I
no,
remember
seriously.
when they came to our town, their first album just came out, maybe it was 76. And there was a line of, and I would get out of school half the class, half the day, and I would go to the fairgrounds where the show
That's
was.
cool.
And there was a line of the scariest people waiting to get in. Everybody seemed like they were in a motorcycle gang. And I was afraid of everything back then. And
I
there
hear it.
was,
Well,
they were
yeah, if you
scary
really,
people.
yeah, yeah.
And
Well,
I
especially grew
remember
up in a
that.
small town or whatever, you know what I mean, or whatever, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I gotcha. And
yeah,
then, so I, the guys were in the green room and they were putting on their makeup, and Gene Simmons, I walk in, I say, do you guys need anything? And he goes, no, how's it looking out there? And I said, honestly? And he goes, yeah, honestly. I said, because the show was sold out long before, but it was general admission. So as soon as you go in there, you go to it's standing only, and you
yeah,
go to the
exactly.
front and
Yeah,
all that kind of
yeah,
stuff. So
yeah.
that people were there early in the day. And I said, honestly, it looks scary. And he goes, what do you mean? I said, your audience seems scary to me. Like, are you ever afraid of your audience? And he looked up at me annoyed, and he said, and he stopped putting on his makeup, and he said, my friend, before I started this band, I was a high school teacher in New York. I am afraid of nothing. Oh my God. I loved it.
That
I
he
loved
is
it.
so full of like perfect
Yeah.
one-liners or whatever. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like he's pretty
Right.
funny. He's pretty funny.
So that's what that's what I did in high school. And then I went
Well,
out to
so Ralph, like one thing I want to ask is like, were you
yeah.
playing music before this, or like did you catch the promoter bug? It seems like
I
you're You got more into
Well,
promoting, it sounds like, from the way you're talking about it.
yeah, I was really what I did is I started to play guitar, and I played at church. So
Mm,
we had the folk mass on Saturday nights. So me and two other really talented women would play these masses, and there was probably, 700 800 people every Saturday
oh
night for these
wow.
masses. And the two women I was with were really good, and I was just okay. So I thought, we're pretty good here. Let's start. I started a coffee house series in my church and in the school, in the gymnasium.
Yeah.
So we had a place to play, and then I started to book our little trio in other places. So then, like, we wouldn't play beside church unless I went out and found out what was going on.
Mm,
So
mm,
I became very conscious of little coffee houses and open mics and things like that. So I love that. I love promoting back then.
mm.
And then when we started to do the big shows with big bands, you really cut the bug. Like, you could, once you hang out with Richie Blackmore's Rainbow and three other opening acts, you you just I just couldn't go back to my life as a
I
normal
hear
person.
I
You
hear you.
know,
I hear you.
I was completely imprinted with the magic and majesty and the scariness of the energy of these bands. So
Mm.
I I wanted to play music, and I did play music, but I really really liked promoting. So when I went into college, I went out to Indiana to University of Notre Dame, and
Nice.
my junior year and senior year, I was the concert director there. So it was the same kind of deal. We had really good professional um,
Wait,
promoters that
th-
would,
th-
yeah,
sorry to interrupt you, but did you go there when Joe Montana was quarterback? I like, because I'm lining up the years and I'm like, you were pretty close to being there then.
yeah. I graduated in 1981, and my
Yeah, so
freshman year in Keenan Hall, Joe Montana lived in our dormitory. He
that's
had the
funny.
first room on the left when you go in there. So running into Joe Montana was like almost a daily thing when he was on
No,
campus.
Cannon, that is funny. That's
Yeah,
fun.
I
That's
know.
really funny. That is so
I
cool
know.
though. Like,
I know. I was just like,
sorry to keep interrupting you, but I'm like, I think of these things because I'm like, oh my goodness, I think Joe Montana was there at that time.
yeah, yeah. And for those people that don't know, he's one of the top quarterbacks of all time.
He was the Tom
And
Brady before Tom Brady.
exactly, exactly. And something, it's amazing. Like, our dining hall was across the quad. So to go from Keenan Hall to across the quad, you're going into all kinds of frisbee games and people throwing
That's
football
cool.
and all that stuff. So
That's
everybody
cool.
would say, Joe, Joe, and they would throw him a football, and then they'd go out for a pass like a mile away, and he would throw it and hit it perfectly. Yeah, it was great. But
That's cool.
again, when you're around somebody like Joe Montana, and I'm not a football player, but you get inspired by these people.
Yeah, totally. Like,
They're having bigger lives than I was used to.
well, and you know what? Like he's a perfect example of kind of like I think we were talking about this during the interview, but like, Joe Montana, it's awesome to see someone when they're in their element. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
Joe Montana was made to be a quarterback, right? And so like once he was in that element and doing that thing, it's magic to see someone when they're doing the thing they're meant
yeah,
to do. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly. They're in the zone. There's nobody
yeah.
better, and you got to understand. And I roomed with a Notre Dame basketball player,
Oh,
a
no
guy
kidding.
named Gilberto Salinas, who was just brilliant, brilliant guy. He's about 6'11", massive, massive.
Jeez, 6'11".
But because he was my roommate, you see how hard they work.
Yeah.
They're always thinking of the games. They're thinking of the practices. Physically, it's hard. Emotionally, it's hard. Mentally, it's hard. All these things, it's hard. And then you got to be a college student,
Right.
and
Right.
Notre Dame's hard, so you got to pass. You can't slough off. So
So what
to
did you end up
see
going? So why were you there, Ralph?
exactly,
Yeah, yeah.
uh, I was there because I went to Catholic school all my life,
Okay,
and
so that was just a natural thing then.
yeah,
Yeah.
and Joe Montana's from Pennsylvania. So I like, and the
Oh, no kidding.
football,
I didn't know that. That's
Notre
funny.
Dame football was bigger than life, and basketball was
Oh,
bigger than life.
especially in the
But
80s, Notre Dame football was
yeah,
huge.
right. So my father was a physicist, and he got his PhD from Notre Dame. So
Oh, wow.
it was always in my mind. That was my number one school.
Well, that's
And
cool.
for
At least
some
you got to go
reason,
to your number one school.
yeah, and it's I know how rare that is. And I sit around my class reunions at Notre Dame, and all my friends, there's no way we can get into Notre Dame these days. No way. We couldn't afford it, first of all. But you gotta be number one in your class. You gotta be president of this. You gotta be captain of the football team,
Mm,
and you
mm.
gotta be like working on a cure for cancer. And
Right,
then
right,
maybe you had a
right.
chance. Like, there's no way I could get in there. So that was a really important part. But you know, to this point, I graduated Notre Dame, and I wanted to go to the last concert I promoted was Bruce Springsteen. And it was
Wow, that's cool.
1981, and
Again, that was when he was huge. Like,
the River just came out, and he was doing
oh
these
my
tours,
goodness.
and being from Pennsylvania, Springsteen was my guy. So I got a
Totally.
chance to to hang with him through the
I
sound check and load in, sound check, the show, after the show. And again, I just it was seeing my hero, being around my hero, and changing my life.
I heard that
You
he's
know,
like the nicest guy in the world, Bruce
he is the
Springsteen.
nicest guy, but he's so hardworking. He's so maniacally focused on things.
Hmm.
And I remember he went to his band was on stage, and they were doing sound checks, and Bruce would be walking through every section of the arena. And it's about I think it's about 11, 12,000 capacity in the basketball arena.
Mm.
And he would be walking around while the band plays, and he tunes the sound according to where the
Wow.
sections are. And he says, we need more of this here or less of that, and it's too much echo, and take out the reverb.
Wow.
So and that's a long thing to go around a
That
whole
is.
arena
It
and
is. That's
tune the
no
room.
joke. Yeah.
And then his show was 3 hours long, and it was incredible. So anyway, there I am graduating, and I wanted to move to New York City, and I wanted to get a job in the music business.
Hmm.
Before that, I was going to London and with to visit some friends. And I just graduated, went to London, and there was a guy next to me on the plane um, with a big shiny jacket, a black jacket, and looked cool. And he like turned a little bit and says, "The River," Bruce Springsteen, "The River." And I go, "Wow." I go, "That's a cool jacket. Where'd you get it?" And he said, "My boss." And I said, "What?" And I said, I thought he said the boss. And I go, "Yeah,
Yeah,
I know
yeah,
he's the boss." And he goes, "No, he's my boss." And I said,
That is
what do you
funny.
mean?" And he goes, I work for Bruce. And I said, "What do you do?" And he goes, "My name is Barry Bell. I'm his booking agent." I go, "Barry, I'm Ralph JACCODINE from Notre Dame. We just promoted you guys." And he, Bruce does a lot of shows, and Barry books a lot of shows, but in this particular show at Notre Dame, part of the rider was getting a football jersey for Barry Bell and a football jersey for Bruce Springsteen.
That's funny.
So I went to the football office, and they were like national champs and things. So I went to the
Right,
football
right.
office, and I got these jerseys made for them.
That's
And
Did you get like their
it's
names on
a
the back or whatever too?
yes, yep,
That's cool.
Springsteen and
That's
Bell.
cool. That's
So
so
they
cool.
remember that. And anyway, so I'm going over to London, and Bruce is doing like 5 shows at the Wembley Arena,
Oh,
and
geez.
and I'm a massive fan. And his my seatmate neighbor says, "Are you going over for the shows?" And I said, "No, I couldn't get tickets." And I understand this is pre-internet. How do you get tickets in London?
Yeah, right. Yeah, you're gonna
Right,
call London. You know what I mean? Like no one, no one's gonna do that.
right. So
Yeah.
and I didn't even have a credit card. So he
Right.
said, "This is what you do. Come to this is the hotel," and he wrote it on a piece of paper. And we leave at about 3 o'clock to Wembley. So just join us. So there I am. I
What?
this little piece of paper with the hotel and Barry's information, and we didn't have cell phones, so it's just the hotel and Barry Bell, and then we leave at 3 o'clock. I got there at like 9 in the morning. And I was just waiting in the
I
hotel,
don't, dude,
just
I
like
don't blame
just
you.
waiting for Bruce Springsteen, right? You know, what else am I going to do? I didn't want to miss it.
I am not missing this.
Exactly.
I am going to make sure I am there.
So I got there, and you know, lo and behold, it's the band, and it's a driver, security guy, and Barry was there, and
Dude,
everybody kind of gathered around, and they got in a very nice van and went to Wembley together in a
that is
van. And I was thinking,
crazy.
like, can you? I just like I thought, like, if like something happens, like a meteor falls on us or a bridge collapses, what a way to go, you know, with Springsteen
I
in his band,
died on
right?
the bus with Bruce Springsteen.
Exactly,
You can put that on
exactly.
my grave.
That's that. Well, that's how I was. That's how I was thinking. Like,
No, I
this
hear
is
you,
bigger
dude.
than
I don't blame you.
this is bigger than life.
I hear you.
So, you know, and the story, the reality of the story is, like, you go in through the back, and then there's a back door, and security opens it up, and you walk backstage, and everybody goes to their rooms. Bruce has his room, Barry
Mm.
has his room, the manager has, and everybody has their rooms. And I was just standing there, and I like, and I'm going, like, I'm just standing there backstage. It was great. And then a security guy comes up, a police officer, and he says, "Do you have credentials?" And I said, "No, I'm with the band." And they go, "Great,
Right?
you need
Famous last
credentials."
words.
Yeah, good for you. No, really, I came in their van.
Really? I went to the hotel. They gave me a ride for
So
real.
he was getting ready to get rid of me, and then, of all people, there's a guy named George Travis, and
Mm.
George is Springsteen's. He's his road manager for years, and he's kind of a legendary, wonderful, wonderful guy. Just happened to be walking backstage at the time, and I met him when he was at Notre Dame, and I said,
Mm.
"Excuse me, George, I need some kind of sticker or something, a backstage pass to stay here." And he goes, "Oh, sure, sure, sure. How many do you need?" And I go, I just need one for me." So he gave me like 3 backstage passes, and he says, "Do you have tickets?" And I said, "No." And he gave me like 5 10th row middle tickets,
Jeez, like perfect tickets.
right? And then so I was alone. So when the show started, I was in the 10th row with all these empty seats, and then I had people, my friends from London, were going to the show, so they were going to, and like, how do you get a hold of somebody? Like,
Yeah,
right? There's
right.
no cell
Yeah,
phones.
exactly.
So
Exactly.
I said to them beforehand, I said, I might be going to the show tonight with Barry Bell, Springsteen's guy, and so look for me. And that's all I said.
Yeah.
And they looked for me, and they were way up in the nosebleeds. They came down, and they ran down the middle aisle. And the only way I heard of anything, this is about 10 minutes before the show started, I heard my name, and my name is Ralph. So there's not a lot of people saying Ralph.
Yeah.
And I looked around, and my friend Simon and other people were running down the middle aisles with the security after them. And I went running out, and I says, "Here, here." And I gave Simon backstage passes, and I gave him tickets and this and that. So it was one of
That's
the best days
funny.
of my life.
That's awesome.
But then what I had to do is I had to get that experience, and the experience of being in London and graduating from college. And I had to move to New York City and try to get a job. So
Like,
I
did you want to
sent
get
my
a promoting
resume.
job? Is that what you were
Oh,
trying to?
I just wanted to take over the music business. Sure.
Okay. Okay.
You know, I just like, why not? And I thought, because I was promoting these big shows in high school and college, and I was a musician myself, and like, I was, you know, lesson number 1, foolish and fearless. I was always foolish. I was always fearless.
Mm.
So nothing's going to stop me. So I sent my resume and a cover letter to all these record labels, publishing companies, promoters, um, and I didn't know anybody. I knew Barry Bell, one person. And so it was just like a cold letter with a resume
Mm,
to
mm.
a record label, which they must get, a hundred
A
thousand a
thousand of
day.
them. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right.
Especially back then in
So
the mail or whatever, you know.
so I didn't have an interview. I didn't have anything. And there was a unpaid internship available, and I thought I was too good for that, so I didn't take it.
Hmm.
So because I needed to pay rent too,
I hear you. I
it
hear
was in New
you.
York City. So what happened is one of my buddies from Allentown worked for Wrangler Jeans, and he's a really good guy, and he used to play a lot of basketball, and he used to, he loved his job, and he was making some good money. And he says, we have an opening in New York City in the Empire State Building in the showroom, if
Huh.
if you're interested. And I said, well, I need a job. And they were paying decent money, and it's to be in the showroom showing buyers our line, the
All the
Wrangler
latest
jeans
stuff and
line.
everything. Yeah, so that's
Right.
cool.
So
Yeah,
I go, this
yeah.
is not rock and roll, and
Yeah,
it's
no.
not what I thought about. But what I did is I took the job. I took the job, and lo and behold, years and years and years later, it was one of the best things I ever did, because first of all, I knew I had to pay my own bills,
Mm,
and I made money, and I learned about money. I learned about negotiation. I learned about sales. I learned about selling something I didn't believe in. I didn't believe in Wrangler jeans, but I believe in growing a career and learning about all these things. And
mm.
I had mentors, I had friends, and and then at night I was managing a punk rock band.
That's cool.
And so which by the way, it sounds cool, but managing a punk rock band is like going to a rehearsal space that has like murders around and bugs
Right,
and rats,
right.
and drinking beer with a punk rock band,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
but I think that's what managing is, I guess. So I had a great time. Wrangler moved me up to Boston, and I decided to do something different.
Mm,
I was playing music. I was promoting a little coffee house in my church.
mm,
I was going out to see music at night. Music was really, really important to me. But what I did is I got into commercial real estate. I
mm.
knew nothing about it. Is all I knew, that there was a lot of big buildings going up in Boston, and the real estate developers were like the rock stars.
Right,
And
right.
I needed to make money. So I did the same thing. I sent my resume out to everybody, and I had no experience. I had no experience in real estate. I knew nothing about that. I could
Mm.
sell. I had passion for things. I could learn, but nothing until one guy named Jules Cavati hired me. And it doesn't mean you get paid. It's 100% commission. But what hiring is in commercial real estate back then was I got a desk and a phone.
Yep. And I was like,
So
do what you can do.
I eat what I kill.
Yep,
So I had to
exactly.
go out and I had to get a tenant and put him into a space. So
Oh,
I did
so
that for
that's so you weren't doing like the loans and stuff. You were more putting.
no. This was I was a real estate broker finding a
Okay.
company that needed a restaurant downtown Boston, and I
Okay.
would
Okay.
try to find them location. So
Okay.
I hustled. I I remember there was a couple years there where I did nothing but walk around town and meet people and give a business card out and figure out the buildings and the landlords.
Hmm.
And I had several pairs of shoes with holes in,
I
because
believe
I,
it.
I just I just had to hustle. So I did that for
Especially walking on some of those cobblestone streets.
exactly. so and again, I loved it because I learned about negotiation. I learned about
Mm,
money.
mm,
I learned about and selling, and I grew up. Again, I was going out to see music all the time. I was playing music. Music was number one in my life. I just wasn't doing
mm,
it during the day.
mm.
And then when I was 30 years old, I went to a underground church coffee house in Harvard Square, and I saw this guy with long hair and a tattoo, and they said, and now Ellis Paul, and he gets on stage and he plays a couple of songs, and then he got off mic and he would walk through the audience, and it was kind of like, it's folk music, but it's not my father's folk music.
Yeah,
This is
yeah.
great stuff. This is really great stuff. And then I started to promote him in a coffee house, and then Ellis and I made a partnership, and we started a record label
Oh
with
wow.
one of my real estate clients that has a record store chain. In Boston, we have a chain called Newbury Comics.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
the guy that started it was one of my real estate clients.
That is
And
funny. No kidding.
and we started a label, and I started managing. That was the early 90s.
That's so cool. That's
So
really cool.
that's what got me into it. And then I was just checking in there's a there's a so this is what I'm doing is I'm 12 years of commercial real estate where I was able to buy a little condo, fix it up and sell it.
That's
I
cool.
buy a and then I would buy a bigger condo, fix it up and sell it. So I was doing that. So I was able to make some money and invest money and save money.
Mm.
So when I was in my 30s, I got married and had a kid, and I go like, that's it. I'm closing the door and I'm going into commercial. I'm going into the music business. I'm
Oh
going to
wow.
manage Ellis Paul, and I'm
Okay.
going to have my record label manage Ellis Paul. And again, foolish and fearless. I had no idea what I was doing, but I
You were
had a lot
more
of
just
faith in
following
myself.
your passion. It sounds like you're more following your passion in
Completely,
your heart than like,
completely following
yeah,
my passion
yeah,
in my heart.
yeah.
And like, I can't create the music, but Paul could. And he needs me. He needs me to help promote, market, monetize his talent.
I hear
And
you.
I need him because he's an amazing guy, dear friend. I love the guy, good work ethic.
Hmm.
And it was a really good partnership. So we worked together for 25 years.
Wow.
And from Ellis Paul, I was able to manage a lot of artists and have a career. But
That's
I'll
really
tell you,
cool.
it's hard to do when you're making 15% of what an artist makes.
Right.
And if that
15% and
artist,
not much equals not really
yeah,
much.
but even like an artist back then, if they were successful, they were making 60 to $100,000, and
Right.
that's a real good fee for an artist,
Yeah, no, totally. Absolutely.
salary. But 15% is that not much. So I needed to completely hustle all the time.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
needed to get mentors. I needed to get help, and I needed to stay being fearless and foolish. And then all of a sudden, I'm 35 years into managing artists.
Yeah, that's I think I'm also that fearless and fool. I think, people that are sort of entrepreneurial, there's like kind of something wrong with them anyways. Like
Yes,
you
in
know
a
what I
good
mean?
way. In a good way.
Yeah, in a good way, because it's just like only someone that can and this isn't a bad thing. Like, because entrepreneurs will tell you, "Oh yeah, I failed at this. I was terrible at that, or I failed it." But the whole point of it is like you get back up, you dust yourself off, and just keep going. And like that's kind of the
Yeah,
part of the fearless and foolish the thing is like,
yeah.
kind of like not knowing when to quit. You know what I mean? Like,
I do know exactly what you mean. And I grew up like the church was. I went to Catholic school. I was an altar boy, and I always had this kind of thing of faith through my life. So I I do I do feel that I'm in good hands.
I hear
I
you.
do feel like I'm here for a reason. And one thing, Johnny, I got to tell you, one of the hardest nights of my life is like, listen, I I have my own business. I'm in music. I'm all my dreams are coming true. But getting married and having a kid and being able to pay bills was hard.
Mm,
And I remember there was a time where my wife and I were in the kitchen, and we had this big stack of bills to pay.
mm,
And every month we would get the checkbook and we'd go through the bills and find out what we had money for, what was important. And and we had a little boy, Evan, upstairs. And there's a that in this particular night I didn't have enough money in the bank to pay the bills. And And then, I was just like, fuck, what do you do? So
Mm.
maybe we'll call them, or we'll pay half of this and this and that. And it was just terrible. I feel like I was a failure as a business person, as a husband,
Mm.
as a
Mm.
father. And I don't get these feelings a lot.
Yeah.
But it was, I was not seeing colors. I was just seeing gray.
Mm.
And
Mm.
and all of a sudden during this meeting, my son starts crying upstairs. And so his mother gets up and says, "Oh, I'll take care of Evan." And she gets up and she walks in front of me. And at the time, she was very, very pregnant with my daughter named Luca. So my daughter was ready to be born.
Oh man,
And I had
I've
this
been in
stack of
yeah,
bills.
I've been in situations
And
like that too.
she walked past me, and I go like, my son's upstairs crying. My daughter's ready to be born. I can't pay my bills. And I was just a tough way. And then before my wife turned the corner to go upstairs to deal with my son, she said, maybe it's time for you to go back to real estate.
Mm.
And that's like saying I was going to close the door on my dreams, and
Mm.
all this, all this great stuff that I was doing, and all the success I had with my artists has to end.
Mm.
Because
Mm.
what point of your life you're saying, hey, let's grow up now. This music
Right.
stuff could be, a dream, but like, what's the reality? I'm a father. I'm going to be a father of 2 kids. And so I put my head down in those bills, and I had tears in my eyes, and I was just so exhausted from all this financial pressure.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And it was one of the toughest nights of my life, and I couldn't sleep that night. My office is downstairs. So in the morning, the next morning, after very little sleep, I went outside the house and I went to the downstairs. There was a little apartment there. And I opened the door, and the phone was ringing. And
Hmm.
I pick it up and I said, Ralph here. And he goes, hey, Ralph, it's Pete. And I go, Pete, good. And I know a lot of Pete's. I said, who? Pete who? And he goes, Pete Farrelly. And Pete
Oh,
Farrelly
the
is,
Fairley
but
brothers?
bingo.
Oh
But
my
I knew
goodness.
I knew Pete when he was doing odd jobs and waitering and doing stuff in Boston, because he was a friend of a friend, and we used to drink beer, and we used to laugh, and we used to go out and drink more beer, and we had a great time. And then all of a sudden, 10 years later, Pete wrote a script that became Dumb and Dumber, and he
Come
became,
on.
an A-list director. His
Yeah, no.
last film was The Green Book,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
who won the Oscar. So
I
this is
love
a
all their movies. They
me
write
too,
great
man.
stuff. Yeah.
So this is a friend. This is a friend. And he was on the phone. And this is after success with Dumb and Dumber, and something about Mary and all this stuff. And
Oh my
so Pete
goodness.
doesn't call me a lot, but he did on this particular morning after very little sleep, after one of the toughest nights. And he said, listen, I just got that Ellis Paul record you sent me. And the seventh song, The World Ain't Slowing Down, I want to make the feature song of my next movie.
Wow.
And I say, wow, tell me about the movie. And he said, it's called Me, Myself, and Irene.
Oh my God. I love that
And
movie.
it's with Jim. And I go,
Exactly.
Jim who? And he goes, like, Jim Carrey. And I
Yeah.
go,
What other Jim
okay.
is there?
Well, I didn't know there's a Pete. I didn't know there's a Jim. I didn't know anything. I was out of my mind. I got 2 hours of sleep.
I hear you.
Johnny,
I
ease
hear.
up on me. So, so that phone call completely changed my life,
I believe it. I
because
believe it.
all of a sudden we made money. And all
Right.
of a sudden, every time it gets around the world or on television, we make money. So
That's
Ellis
so
Paul and I
funny. That is so funny.
made a lot of money from that.
Well, I
But
believe it.
it
I believe
it
it.
made his career, the career went from a 2 or 3 to a 10, because all of a
Wow.
sudden his music and his name was in front of a lot of people.
Wow.
So, I think of what happened there, right? So I had the worst night. I couldn't pay my bills. I felt like a failure. And then 12 hours later, a friend calls me
Out of the blue.
saying, and yes, he's a friend, and yes, Peter and Bobby do nothing but help their friends, but he loves this song, and the song fits perfectly in this Jim Carrey movie,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
and that's happened lots of times with Pete. He's put a lot of my artist music in his movies, and
Mm.
God, the friends, you call it a network, but the friends I had have kept me going. Fearless,
Yeah.
foolish, and then my network, my friends, the people I love.
You know, it's
So
kind of funny is
that's
like
kept me in
it,
the game.
yeah, no, and what's kind of funny too about your story is I think this happens for a lot of people where, like you said, your wife was kind of turning the corner and she's like, oh, do we maybe it's time to throw in the hat, like throw in the towel,
Yeah,
right? And like so it's always right when you're at kind of the brink of like, am I gonna give up?
right,
That's right
right.
when you're supposed to hang on because that's when like the breakthrough or the thing is gonna come through, you know what I mean? Like
But Johnny, it's hard.
it
It's
totally
hard
is.
when
It
you're depressed, when you can't pay your bills, where you
absolutely.
feel like there's no light ahead. But there is that quote that the darkest part of the night comes right before the morning.
Exactly.
And
I was literally just about to like say something close to that,
right.
honestly. Yeah, no, for real.
So this career of mine of following my dreams and my goals and all that stuff, I don't take lightly the help and assistance I've got from my faith that I'm not alone,
mm.
from my friends, from my family, kind of basic stuff. But it
So
all
like
starts with a little kid that was just imprinted early, wanting to have a bigger life than I saw. And I needed to be foolish and fearless.
I hear you.
And I
Like,
and I need to learn from all these people.
I want to like just because I haven't really spoken to too many promoters yet. Um, this is like an interesting part of kind of creating, like, because even though you're not like, I mean, you are a musician, but I'm saying in general, even though like you're not a musician out trying to get gigs, right? You can still
Right.
be someone that finds a musician and that is passionate about them or loves the music they do, and you
Yeah.
can create a way for them to be found. So,
Well,
like,
yeah, that's exactly it. And sometimes that job is as creative as somebody that writes songs or paints
I
pictures.
totally, absolutely. So, like, if someone kind of wants to get started, I mean, don't give them a whole breakdown, but like, how would someone get started? Like, I mean, I'd like to imagine there's still kids playing in like rock groups and stuff in their house, but even if there isn't, let's say there's some kid that's doing the hip hop stuff or whatever, and they want to, promote their friend or whatever. Like, how does someone like, like put a show together or promote some, what is some of like the starting things
You know
someone would
something?
do?
There's so much material on the internet. There's
Mm,
so much material. And then there's, like what I did is when I didn't know a manager in my life, I went to the biggest manager I've ever heard of. He's a guy named Tim Collins. He managed Aerosmith for all these years.
they just
And I,
retired.
yeah, I went
Yeah.
to his office. He went in to see me. I gave him my business card. I gave him the Ellis Paul record, and I told him what I do and what I'm doing and blah 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 blah. And that's it. I
Hmm,
touched the garment of the
hmm.
manager of Aerosmith, the first manager I ever met. That's all I wanted to do. I just wanted to breathe the same air as the manager of Aerosmith. And then a couple of days later, he calls me up, or his secretary calls me up and said, "Please hold for Tim Collins." And Tim had a question about a venue in Massachusetts, and I knew a lot about the venue.
Yeah.
So I told him about the venue and what it's about and who owns the building and blah blah blah. And then I got off the phone. It was a 5-minute call. I got off the phone. I go, "Oh my God, I just helped the manager of Aerosmith." So I
Hmm.
called him back and I said, "Tim, I just helped you and I'm sure you could help me." And he goes, "Yep." And I says, "Why don't we get managers together to help each other out?" He goes, "I love the idea." So we started something called the Boston Managers Group. And
Hmm.
that was 30 some years ago. That was the experts helping the beginners. And it was
Wow.
people like when you're a manager, you're in your office and you think of your artist and that's it.
Yeah.
It's very
Yeah.
myopic. It's very,
Yeah.
you know, but now we could, once a month or once every 2 months, we could get in a room and talk to each other. and help each
Mm,
other out and grow our network that way. So I
mm,
suggest, to answer your question, that these people that are interested in helping an artist out figure out what the artist needs. Do they
mm.
need do they need legal help? Do they need shows? Do they need financial help? Do they need some kind of transportation support, housing? Do they need a place to rehearse? Whatever it is, but find other managers and get help. Ask for
Hmm,
help.
hmm,
So
hmm.
the best thing here in the States is something called the Music Managers Forum. And it's mmfus.com.
Oh, wow. Okay. I didn't
Music
realize
Managers
something
Forum,
like that
and
existed.
it exists for starting out managers, people that want to be managers, and there's a
No
lot of
kidding.
resources. So my Boston managers group is now MMF Boston, and we're launching
Oh,
next month
okay.
actually.
That's
So
cool.
there's lots of help out there, and in the music business, there's a lot of people that want to help other people. There's
That's
really
actually what
good
I was just
people.
about to ask, because like it seems like in the music industry, like a lot of people, it's cutthroat. Everyone's out to kind of, get the money for themselves or whatever kind of thing. But
Yeah,
I was gonna ask like how, it seems like people are willing to help if you're able to reach
yeah,
out to Aerosmith's manager and be like, hey, let's start
right,
this thing. He's like,
exactly.
he's like, absolutely.
Yeah,
So
but
that's really cool.
because I reached out to the Aerosmith manager and because he said yes, that's that's my mission now. Is all
I
I
hear
want to
you.
do is help other people. I want to help beginners. I want to help my students at Berklee College of Music. I want to help people now. This is my duty.
I hear
This is
you.
what I know, and there's a karma to this. There's a
No,
big
totally.
karma to this.
Absolutely, yeah. So I guess circling into Berkeley, like this is interesting. Then, so like, since you teach like music business and stuff, it's your job to teach them like, hey, here's how to be found in the world, right? Like, like here's how to make money playing music. Like that must have changed. Like I don't know
Yeah,
how long you've been doing it, but even if you've been doing it for 10 years, I'd imagine your classes have morphed a little bit since the first time.
yeah. There's changes all the time. That's what makes it exciting.
Yeah.
And but there's things that are consistent. Number one, the power of a good song.
Mm,
Number
mm.
two, a great live performance. Number
Absolutely.
three, working harder than anybody.
Mm,
Number four, working smarter than anybody.
mm,
Number five, getting a team around you.
mm,
And all this, you've got to figure out why you're doing it. Why should someone care? Why does somebody need another Springsteen song, another Jay-Z song, another
mm,
Eminem song? What are you putting out in the world? Why are you doing it?
mm.
And if it's to help, to inspire, to heal, to entertain, you know, the world needs all this stuff. The world needs
That
more light.
that's kind of, yeah, I agree with that 100%. That's kind of funny you're saying that because I wonder myself as a guitar player if I've ever considered or pondered those things when I wrote songs or music. Like what is my goal with it? Like what do I want to
Yeah,
accomplish with this song? You know what I'm saying?
right.
I don't think I've actually sat down and pondered that
But
deeply, honestly.
I I haven't until recently,
Mm,
until I started to teach. But like,
mm,
what's your mission statement? Why are you doing what you're doing?
mm.
Like you're
I
you're putting a lot of good stuff in the world, Johnny.
Thanks, dude. I
You know?
appreciate that. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, like I said, I never considered like, I mean, obviously I understand if you're a musician, it's your business, but I never considered applying those like actual business aspects of in that sense to your music or what you're doing. Like, what is my mission
Yeah.
statement as like a musician? What do I want to like? I really never thought of that stuff. That's kind of funny, honestly.
Well, you're kind of
Huh.
living an inspired life, man.
Thanks, dude. I
You know,
appreciate
and
that.
it's and it's your life, and just the
Mm,
fact that you're doing all the stuff you do, and you're putting it out there by being foolish and fearless. Like
absolutely.
these are important things to learn from. This
Yeah.
is you're doing it, man.
Hmm. That's very cool. So, what are some of the things that you do in your class then? Like, I mean, do you go over like search engine optimization? Are you like, here's how to?
Not really. No,
Okay,
I'm
okay,
more of a a macroeconomic view of things.
okay,
Like
okay.
how do you follow the money? How's money been made? Why should someone care? And we answer these questions. What's your mission statement? What are you doing?
Hmm. Hmm.
Like, and then how you get mentors. I bring a lot of
Hmm.
guest speakers in too,
That's
because
cool.
yeah, it's not just Ralph talking about Ralph things.
No, that's really cool. Man,
So, so I hope there was some stuff here that's useful to other people.
absolutely. No,
You
absolutely. Like
know,
Ralph, you gave a lot of great stories, which that's what's more impactful, honestly.
yeah. Well, that's how
You
I
know,
learned. I learned through
yeah,
stories. I don't learn necessarily through lectures and books and stuff like that.
yeah, yeah. No, you gave a lot of great info through those stories. So,
Good.
um, yeah, is there anything going on on your end that you want to promote? I mean, do you have like any books, any music, any whatever? Do you
Well,
have anything?
a while ago, I had a student who was having some problems with mental health,
Mm,
trauma, and addiction,
mm.
and and I connected her with a place called Right Turn. It's in
Oh,
Watertown, Massachusetts,
okay,
and it's started by a musician named Woody Geisman, who is the drummer of a band called the Del Fuegos, and they
okay.
toured with uh, Tom Petty and all these
Oh,
people,
geez, wow.
and the band blew apart because of their addiction problems and lots of reasons. But Woody got himself straight, and he got himself to understand addiction, and he started Right Turn to help people. It's a creative place for recovery to get
That's
through
cool.
your addictions, right?
That's cool.
So, so I've been on the board of directors because they've helped a lot of my, not a lot, but enough of my students at Berklee, and a lot of musicians. These are Grammy Award winning musicians,
Wow.
and
Wow.
so they helped all that. So I'm on the board, and one of the things that they're doing is Woody, a comedian named Tony V, and a drummer for the band Free and Bad Company, Simon Kirk.
Oh, that's
They
cool.
wrote a screenplay, and it's like a love story about addiction,
Mm.
and um, and it's really great. It's called Rock Bottom,
Hmm.
and so we have a soundtrack in it. The bass player is Tom Hamilton from Aerosmith.
Oh, that's
The
cool.
guitarist is Gary Boudreau, who's the first guitarist for the first couple of Boston records.
That's cool.
Simon Kirk from Bad Company on drums, and it's a super group. Rhythm guitarist Bob Dylan. It's a
Hmm.
super group with people like this. So
Yeah,
that's what I'm working on. So
that's pretty incredible.
yeah, so we're looking to raise money, and we're looking next year to release the record. And for classic rock fans, it's fantastic record.
Wow.
So that's what I'm working on, among other
Wow.
things.
So do you play guitar? We didn't really get into what you play.
No, no, I manage and I
Well, I
use
mean,
my cell phone.
when you played an instrument, I mean, when you
Yes,
played an instrument
yes.
though. Yeah.
I was a very average guitar player. Yeah, but you know something? It's like I don't miss it. I played guitar every day. I want to be a musician, and but then I found that what I did in music, um, I thought management and business and booking was like boring, but it's,
Mm.
as I said, it's as creative as writing a song.
No, it
It can
totally
be.
is.
Music
It's
can be as business can be as creative as art.
no, absolutely. I
And
mean, really,
yeah,
really, all creation is solving a problem, or not
that's
solving,
yeah,
but
no,
you know
that's
what I
it.
mean?
That's
Like,
it.
yeah,
What I
absolutely.
say that well, that's what I say to my students. What problem are you solving?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
what?
yeah.
No,
Right.
what problem? Why are you doing music? What problem are you solving?
Yeah,
And
yeah. No,
I talk about stuff like that.
it's it.
But
Like I said,
anyway,
it's so
listen,
interesting. Yeah,
Johnny, we got to talk more down the road.
yeah,
I
man.
have,
Absolutely.
yeah, I had to head to a meeting, unfortunately. But
Oh
man,
no,
I
no problem, no problem.
really love sharing some of these stories with you, and hopefully, you got a couple of people listening,
No,
so maybe it
absolutely.
helps them.
And please, let's connect some more. And I think you mentioned like me coming on your end. You do a
Yeah,
podcast, I think, or something. So
no, just I teach classes,
Okay.
bring you
Oh,
on a Zoom and
yeah,
ask
yeah.
you
No, I would
questions.
totally. I would totally. I would love
Great.
to come on a rapid
Great.
fire session or whatever for sure.
So be in
Absolutely.
touch about when this podcast is coming out, and I'll be sharing it, and
Awesome.
we'll keep on talking.
Absolutely. So everyone, I hope you enjoyed this episode. You know the drill. Thank you for listening. Thank you for downloading. And don't forget to embrace your storm. See ya.